1 hour late to other classes. I was going to be 1 hour late to other classes, which meant that I was going to lose my planning time. This was a long time ago. This was when I first started in Korea. I wouldn't be able, because of me being late, for forces outside of me, to plan the lesson that I wanted to teach for these little preschool kids. My planning was up. So I was sitting in the car thinking, what am I going to do? I have nothing to teach. I have no materials, because you need materials to show students, preschool kids, when you're teaching them English. Then I realized, wait a minute, I do have materials. My clothes. I will teach my clothes. So I walked in, and I would sort of kneel down, and I would say this, and the kids would be like, no, range from this to this. And I'd say things like shoes, shirt, pants, and get them to repeat. And that was a good lesson. Then I realized, wait a minute, I only taught men's clothes. So I realized the follow-up lesson had to be about women's clothes. But then I came to an interesting conclusion. It would be unfair to show flashcards for those clothes. Totally unfair, because that's not how I taught men's clothes. So next day, you can guess. Dress, necklace. I was wearing women's clothes as the next lesson. And that's the first and last time I will do that. And I always thought about that. You know, that's interesting that I had to do that. Why did I do that? I didn't do it to entertain the kids. That wasn't my thinking at all. That was the weird thing I discovered. Because I've had to think about that time that I wore a dress in class and why I was doing it. And the conclusions I came up to were pretty interesting. It wasn't because of entertainment. It was because of fairness. It was because of justice. Now, that's interesting to me because a topic that I've been interested in for a long time is creativity. Where do creative things come from? And I came to the conclusion that ethics is important in the creative process. That ethics focuses you, excludes things, and empowers you at the same time. It's not just a no to bad stuff. It's not simply saying no to introducing yourself to strangers at 2 in the morning. It's different than that. It's more focused. It's more fundamental to our own experience. And yet it creates, well, you were typing, that's cute. It creates something new in your mind. So I want to go through some of these. There's a poem called, there's a poet named Robin Field. And I remember some of his poetry. He took 7 virtues and turned them into poetic lines. And I won't go through the whole poem, but let's do one. Honesty. Robin Field. Honesty means only what is so is worth believing. It means no values may be gained by faking or deceiving. Nice poem, right? How does that apply to the creative process? Well, I've had the experience in writing, perhaps you have too, Helena, where it's time to write a story. And if you're writing a story thinking, well, I can't say that because the other person won't like what I think. So you say something else, feeling that your honest views shouldn't come out. That's a mistake. And when I've done that in class, my stories weren't as good. And the teacher said, oh, I'm surprised, I thought you'd do better. So honesty is an aspect of the creative process. Asking, what do I really think about this? Independence, our second virtue. Independence means the truth is yours alone to find. It's your responsibility to live by your own mind. Independence is what creativity is about, right? that you're making something new and original. Or you're trying to come up with something new and original. And that is a big struggle. If you've ever had to teach using a textbook, and that textbook was in the way of you and your students, it becomes a problem. At some point, you have to take ownership. You have to say, well, this is the way I do it because this is my identity as a creative person. So independence is also another virtue. Productiveness, that's our third virtue. Robin Field. Productiveness is what you do to maintain your existence. Achievement is your purpose, and that means go the distance. Famous comedian named John Cleese talked about his own creative processes, and he compared himself to another member of the comedy group that he belonged to, Monty Python. And he realized, I'm not as creative as he is. I'm not as funny as he is in many ways. But usually, I will get to a funnier joke before he will. Why? Because he says he will take 30 minutes longer to figure something out. He will persist. He will push himself to be more creative in that situation. So there's a degree of persistence involved in creativity. I have to get there. I have to cross this finish line. That is important for empowering your mind. And the fourth virtue I want to mention is pride. Pride is your devotion to yourself, your moral worth. You have to earn the right to be your favorite thing on earth. So it still matters to you how you do your work, whatever work is creative for you. You have to figure out why it is that you're important and why you matter, and that will push you even farther. And so I walk away from that experience wearing a dress in class, realizing it's probably the tip of the iceberg of something else that people wanting to be creative need to do. And so I won't wear a dress in the future next time, but maybe somewhere in my mind that still has to be worn. Thank you very much.